Rammus has always been on my radar as a champion I'd like to examine a bit closer, but just never had the balls to do so. Good Rammus players are among the scariest mother truckers in the entire game, and for obvious reasons. About half the player base enjoy playing squishy AD characters, whom are perfectly countered by Rammus's entire kit. Crowd control, durability, high move speed. Once a Rammus gets going, there aren't any AD characters that can truly stop him. So why is it that Rammus doesn't get played more often? If I had to give it a guess, the only reason Rammus doesn't see much play is that he's just so plainly boring. His kit has one fun ability to use, but his other 4 abilities are so dull that you often forget about them immediately after you use them. Rammus's kit is so effective at what he's aimed to do, but so ineffectual at actually connecting the player to the game. But Rammus is strong, I promise. Even if his kit is severely lacking interesting mechanics, Rammus can carry an entire team to victory on his shell. The base values on Rammus's abilities are incredibly high, and the scalings are pretty damn good to boot. So how do we remedy the problem? Well, as the title might suggest, maybe it's time to switch up the tried and true build of full tank Rammus and spice it up a bit. While you unfortunately can't buy anything to spice up Rammus's abilities per se, you can make those boring abilities powerful enough with AP items that you actually feel as if you're making a difference. So how do we play him? I'll be honest, I was a little caught up in this question at first. I couldn't decide between top lane, mid lane, or jungle to be the proper role for AP Rammus. After trying him as a mid laner for a couple games, it was apparent that I was too easily shoved into my turret and roamed away from. It had a little bit of potential because it let me build truly fully AP, like Rabadons and Zhonyas and items like that, but overall it just wasn't consistent enough. Afterwards, I tried him top lane where I had significantly more success. Defensive ball curl is immensely more useful against most top laners, as they are primarily focused on using auto attacks to whittle away your hit points. Also of note, against melee characters, you have a much easier time landing your taunt to set up ganks. Top lane seemed like a perfect fit for AP Rammus over the number of games I played. However, since most players prefer Rammus as a jungler, I felt it prudent to look deeper into that role more than the others. I'll be honest, it took me a few games to get a decent rune page set up for AP Rammus jungle, though I still don't think it's fantastic. AP Rammus jungle was interesting. The easier jungle and presence of Deathfire Grasp made older style Rammus jungle in Season 3 and 4 an absolute beast. Unfortunately, the jungle is much more difficult to farm, and DFG no longer exists in the game. Due to these changes, you can't really go as completely AP focused as I truly wanted to. Believe me, I tried to, with Rabadons, Morellos. I tried to make them work early. It's unfortunate, but unless you build the tanky AP items, you just won't be consistent enough to make AP jungle Rammus work. So now we're here, jungle and top lane AP Rammus with tanky AP items. What makes it work so well? Rammus's entire kit is designed for him to gap close on an enemy and then stick to them and turn them into a sitting duck with his taunt. This build doesn't really change anything about that. We're still playing the same Rammus that we know and love, but now there's a bit more thought that goes into your playstyle. The trade-off of more damage for less durability means you have to choose your engages more wisely. It means you have the ability to make picks where you would not have been able to before. It means you can take down objectives like turrets and inhibitors in a heartbeat when the enemies make even the tiniest of mistakes. This alternative build means Rammus is actually a little interesting to play. So what would a typical AP Rammus build look like? Well, I'd first address the biggest issue of mana requirements. Rammus's abilities are pretty mana intensive, and you'll find yourself running out of mana if you like to spam your Powerball and defensive ball curl. This issue is solved by building Ranger's Trailblazer early on if you're jungling, or 2 to 3 Doran's Rings for a solo lane. Ranger's Trailblazer is especially an interesting item for Rammus, as people try to hide behind minions when running away from your Powerball. Ranger's Trailblazer will either kill those minions and remove them from your path, or stun them in an AoE to create an easy route to your target. The other early game issue that you run into as AP Rammus is your sustain. Rammus has great durability with defensive ball curl, but doesn't have much in terms of keeping his health up in the early stages of the game. In order to remedy this, there are 2 big purchases for early game you'll almost always have to aim for. Picking up a cloth armor early provides that early game boost you need both for jungling and for laning. After your cloth armor, you'll want to go for home guards. Home guards are important because they give you map-wide presence and the ability to see him everywhere at once. Even if you get forced out of lane on top, You can return to lane at full health and mana within 20 seconds, including time for your recall, just by home guarding and powerballing back to top lane. Even if you don't pick up any early game kills with this from the jungle, it is too useful to pass up. Imagine yourself ganking a lane. You burn the enemy's summoners and you get very low on health yourself. But everything is okay. Recall back to base and then home guard and powerball to counter gank on the opposite side of the map just 20 seconds later. I cannot stress enough just how important the early home guards pickup on Rammus is. If for some reason you don't find that picking up home guards works for you early on, you should definitely at least consider finishing your boots enhancement as your second big item. From this point on, it doesn't particularly matter in the order of which you buy the rest of your items, but since you get so much extra armor and magic resist from your defensive ball curl, I would personally suggest aiming for Rylai's and Liandry's, as both items give you a significant amount of health and magic damage. These items naturally also combine well together, as the slow from Rylai's causes Liandry's to do full damage. As your final items, you can typically aim for anything you want. If you're jungling, you probably have already finished your Mage's upgrade to your Ranger's Trailblazer. Abyssal Scepter and Zhonya's Hourglass are two other fantastic AP items that also give you defensive stats, so definitely consider those higher on the list than other classic AP items. These items give you the most that AP has to offer without completely destroying his versatility as a frontline character. Other late game items you probably want to consider include Homewrecker, Hextech Gunblade, Banner of Command, Rabadon's Deathcap, Void Staff, and Lichbane. These items are luxuries that don't have any place in your core build, as they are too situational. So in the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves this: is AP Rammus effective enough to compare to a standard Rammus build? And unfortunately, I can only respond to that question with a big maybe. Standard Rammus build with items like Sunfire Cape, Thornmail, Randuin's. This is a tried and true build. It has been proven effective through hundreds, if not thousands of players, probably playing over tens of thousands of matches. The champion has never really been considered bad, or even useless in the first place. So, standard tank Rammus is effectively stronger, but AP Rammus is, without an inkling of a doubt, much more interesting. This leaves me with a conundrum. I absolutely adore silly champion builds and ridiculous strategies to make these builds work. League is a better place for having them. But unfortunately, I cannot wholeheartedly condone going Mage, Rammus, and Ranked. I'll split my conclusion into two parts. Should you play AP Rammus?